But what I really want to focus is Canadian experience class. So the first thing when it comes to Canadian experience, so what we'll talk through this session is the requirement of Canadian experience class. We will still touch upon the comprehensive ranking system and how the points are calculated. Okay, we will then touch upon some of the draws that have been happening and how some of the changes have happened in past years, especially, and why Canadian experience class is so much in focus now. Okay, what is so special about it? Okay. Uh, yes, Zoe?
Abhishek, I would rather suggest you continue whatever Zoeb actually writes on the chat. I'll kind of, come to you on that, if that sounds okay.
Yes. And
Okay.
just that I got one question, I'll answer this. Yes,
Yeah,
if you
yeah. Please. Go ahead.
your experience will still be counted for period of 10 years, but to be eligible, but you must be eligible in federal skilled worker, but to be eligible for Canadian experience class, the experience must have been earned in 1 year of past 3 years, and which is what I'm highlighting right now on the screen. So what we are looking at is that we need 1 year of qualifying experience in past 3 years. Okay, and then, like I said, the experience has to be in tier 012 category. It has to be gained in Canada and on the authorized permit. So any experience you gain while you were a student will not count. Okay, again repeating that only the experience that you gained when you after you applied for post-graduation work permit will be counted. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
After
Zoeb has a question. Please go ahead. Who's this?
after applied work permit status or post graduation work permit.
So basically, when you apply for post-graduation work permit is the day you move to maintained status as a worker, or what is also popularly known as applied status.
All right, sir. Because on the letter it's mentioned that you can work for any employer without any hours.
Yeah, no, no, no. You can work for anyone. I'm not talking about post-graduation work permit. I'm talking about qualifying experience for Canadian experience class. Okay, so you may be working for three employers, you may be working 120 hours per week, nobody cares about that. But the qualifying work experience will be counted at maximum 30 hours per week. Okay, so let's just come back to the most basic requirement on how you can qualify as as CEC. So the first requirement is you need 1 year of experience in tier 012 knock code. And one of the very common questions I get is, does that experience has to be continuous? No, that experience does not have to be continuous. It can be cumulative experience. And just that it should total 1 year and no more than 30 hours per week should be counted per week, which we have already looked at this requirement. Okay, so gained, it can be in different knock codes as well, as far as your knock codes are tier 3 or higher. And as far as, of course, one of the very normal thing that is happening these days is that people, for trying to find the right category for themselves, are venturing into jobs for which they don't have the right qualification in education or in work experience. Okay, so I understand the desperation and I understand why would you want to do that. Okay, but just be very careful if you're doing it, and there may not be any other path for you, so that I understand, but see that you build your credentials properly. Try, because you may not have time to now do education. Okay, so now only thing you can rely on is past experience. So if you're, say, venturing into something entirely new, there is no possibility to build any past experience. So the only thing that you may be left with is the training certification and possibly any on-job training. So make sure that any job that you pick that is not aligned with your educational qualifications, that is not aligned with any of your past activities you may have done, paid or unpaid or in any form. Okay. And it's a completely new experience for you. Make sure you are building some credentials around it. Okay. Because there are high chances IRCC will ask that what right credentials you have to be employed in that particular job. Because please understand that when we say tier 3 or higher, the reason it is tier 3 or higher is simply because tier 3 and higher jobs are considered skilled jobs or higher skilled jobs. And to be employed in a higher skilled job, you need right qualifications, because you can do a laborer job, which is a tier 4 job, or you can just be a factory worker or a worker as part of any team, which does not require any specific training. But if you now want to be a plumber, construction worker, doctor, engineer, even administrative assistant, accountant, any of these jobs, they require right training. Okay, so and that's the reason that I'm emphasizing that just picking up a job and assuming it will work for you, that would be a very make sure you are also backing it up best you can with the right training and certifications.
Abhishek, there are people to be admitted to the firm.
Okay, now moving on to the next set of requirement, which is that the experience should be gained in Canada while authorized to work under temporary work resident status. So this is again something that we touched upon briefly, is that your experience will only be counted once you have a worker status in Canada. When do you get worker status in Canada? Of course, people who are coming on closed work permits, their worker status in Canada starts the day they land in Canada and start working for their employer. But for the people who are on open work permit, again, if they are coming directly on open work permit, their status as a worker starts when they are coming and starting work as an open work permit worker. But people who are on post graduation work permit, they have this little advantage that their experience is counted the day they apply for post graduation work permit. So once you complete your studies, you get your completion letter, you apply for post graduation work permit. The day you do make that submission, within staying within the boundaries and requirements of PGWP, is the day that your clock starts counting. So any tier experience you gain after that will be counted for your express entry if it is qualifying work experience. So this again is when you are creating your profile, nobody is checking your lead statement. Okay, but it is your responsibility to ensure you are picking the right knock code for the work that you are adding. And why I emphasize on it is that sometimes people tend to go by the job title. Okay, but please be very clear, and it has been very clearly stated here that it is the job description and the main duties that determine the knock code, not your title. Okay, because I mean, very recently I've seen so many cases wherein people are given, especially for their foreign experience, they are given title of assistant manager or deputy manager. Okay, while it was still some tier 2 or tier 3 job. Okay, so manager role automatically makes your job a tier 0 job, meaning the burden is higher on proving that how you are qualified for that job. But point being that don't go by your title, please go by your this job description and your duties to determine your knock code. Okay, and that is very crucial. And right knock code determination is much more crucial for category-based selection, wherein we are targeting very specific categories and very specific knock codes to secure a ITA. If you are securing a ITA in, say, CEC general category, what we are targeting here, you don't have to be very worried about your knock code. As far as your responsibilities are structured in a way that they are tier 3 or higher, or officer does not have to believe that they can be a tier 4 or a tier 5 activities or responsibilities that you are playing. So the most simple trick that I use for that is that when I get a certain letter wherein I have to determine knock code for someone, the first thing I'll do is I'll go through the duties and get the feeling, what's the feeling that I'm getting, whether it's a tier 3 or higher job or not, irrespective of the knock code. Do the duties sound the way that they are tier 3 or higher? Once that is done, is when I try to just broadly see based on it what may be the possible knock code or what may be the possible knock codes, because sometimes it happens that person is performing a duty that are spread out across 3 or 4 different knock codes or even 2 different knock codes, and it is not very clear that where what might be the exact knock code. But as far as knock code is higher than 3, we are all good if we are targeting the general category CEC. And then what I'll also do is that if that knock code has something in there that makes me believe that officer may raise doubts and may say that no, this is not a tier 3 or a tier 2 or a tier 1 experience, but a tier 4 experience, then I'll go through the list of tier 4 knock codes and see if there is any remote possibility that the experience may be categorized differently by the officer. So the biggest thing I'm trying to do here is the three-step process. One, look at the duties. How do they look? Are they, is it very clear that it is tier 3 or higher job? Second thing I do is pick the list of knock codes therein, which could be possibly connected to the responsibilities that are stated. And the third part is make sure that the responsibilities no way are, at least the primary responsibilities or large part of responsibilities is no way matching the tier 4 or a tier 5 experience. And then last step, of course, is to then go through the list of knock codes that we have shortlisted and determine that what could be the best knock code in my opinion.
Abhishek, then there is
Okay, just
another
one
one.
last step. Okay, let me just complete this and I'll be able to take more questions after this. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, then like I said, the work has to be paid. It can be earned commission. Okay, it can be a contractual job, but it cannot be unpaid job. Okay, and also like I stated that it's not explicitly stated here that the experience that you gain as a owner of the business will not be counted towards express entry. Okay, and also I can tell you that any self-employed experience or commission experience, paid wages experience, its burden is still on us to prove that experience. Burden is still on us to prove that you were working whatever hours we are claiming you were working. Okay, so that can be through different means, but the burden still remains on us, and we still have to prove the working hours, and there can be different means to do it. Okay, but this is specifically what I'm talking about, the paid earned commission. Okay, and the last thing, which is of course, and again, the most important thing is that the experience should be 1 year, totaling up till 1560 hours with 30 hours per week maximum. So I keep repeating this. I think it's the fourth or fifth time I'm repeating this, but please do not count any more than 30 hours per week when you are making the calculation for your work experience. It discard anything that is above 30 hours per week, meaning that if there was a week where you work 25 hours, and then there was the other week where you worked 45 hours, your total experience that would be counted for express entry purpose will still be 55 hours. It will not be 65 hours, it will not be 70 hours. It will be 55 hours, counting 25 hours for 1 week and then maximum 30 hours for the next week. Okay, so that's how you can have 1 year experience. Again, it does not have to be continuous experience. I'm saying this because if you go through this line, go to say FSW later, you will see that for FSW requirement is very clear that you at least need to have 1 year of continuous foreign work experience. Okay, so likely if you're not qualifying in a certain stream, it's because you are not meeting the eligibility criteria of that stream. So yeah, again, calculation has been mentioned here very clearly. And for there are certain language requirements to be eligible just for express entry itself. And for this guy, you need a minimum scores of 7 for tier 0 and tier 1 job. This again is little bit of misconception that I only need CLB 7 work. For Canadian experience class, you can have CLB 5 if your job is tier 2 or tier 3. Okay, I'll come to all the questions. Okay, so please keep posting your questions. Okay, so if your job is tier 2 and tier 3 and you have say CLB 5 in one of your modules, you will still qualify for CEC experience class. Okay, of course, I mean with current situation, your score may not be that high, but I mean just from purely from the qualification standpoint, you will qualify. I mean, just as an example, if I go to say Federal Skilled Worker Program, you see that you need minimum of CLB 7 irrespective of your tier category to qualify in express entry. And again, I'm repeating, express entry qualification is CEC, FSW, FST. Category-based selection is entirely different from this. Okay, and to qualify in express entry, you need only to be qualifying in one of these. Okay, you may qualify in two or more, or one or more, that's all right. But to be your profile to be eligible for express entry, you just need to qualify at least in any one of these categories that you see on the screen: Canadian experience class, federal skilled worker, or federal skilled trade. Okay, so those are the language requirements. Again, repeating that tier 2 or 3 with CLB 5 in a certain module would still qualify to have their profiles in Express Entry, versus anyone with tier 0 or tier 1 qualifying job, they need minimum of CLB 7 in each of the language modules.